Well, of course, towards the end of the last century, Nigeria had faced a very serious governance problems in which there has been succession of military adventure in Nigeria, and they had plundered almost every facet and assaulted the total psyche of the country over a period, because Nigeria was showing peace in Africa. At the time it attained independence in 1960, it was with all full of hopes. Then subsequently oil was discovered. So it was supposed to be a very wealthy country, and the wealth was supposed to have been applied into the development of the country. I mean, even as a colonial country, we negotiated our independence from Great Britain with courtesy, and we joined the the Commonwealth, and we were doing very well, and we were respected in international community until we had the military incursion since 1966, which continued until 1979, and then we installed another civilian government, and no sooner we did that, they came back again, and we didn't have a civil society government, a democratic election until 1999. So that can account for the assault of the national psyche, in which everything went, every facet of government, the universities, lecturers left their positions, students went all over the whole place, and Nigerians wanting to go and have their children born in Britain or America. That's really, so we're not surprised that there was a heavy decline. It has improved. I mean, that's why I put in that we did try to arrest the situation, and therefore went into the health sector reform agenda, with spelling out all those objectives of what needed to be done. And we have since been doing that, and the university has been rebuilt. The government has now starting to identify or retool the teaching hospitals. The medical curriculum now is being improved, but the situation was so bad that it's taken some time to revert the changes. But there are specific programs addressing the issue. And the first report of the government when it took over in 1999 to 2003, I was the president of the Academy in 2003, and we did ask to review what the government performance had been, and we can say that it's on the rise again. Well, I mean, I use Nigeria just as a case study, and if Nigeria is, supposed to be one of the main countries that are leaders of the continent is Nigeria, South Africa, and so on. So if Nigeria was in that position, all the other countries are taking a cue from that. I mean, of course, South Africa has done a little much better than Nigeria since, because they've taken they've been longer at it. I think the change to democratic government had occurred much earlier. And so the economy of South Africa is also much improved, and they've been able to keep most of what they gained from a very developed economy. And, but one of the major things that we had looked towards South Africa was, of course, asking government to put a lot more money into science, a lot more money into education, and this just started to be done right now. And I think that is now yielding some fruits. The university now is being rebuilt, and many more universities are coming up, and many more private universities now has been created. And I happen to be the chairman of the board of trustees of one of the new private universities that is also taking challenges from government and also addressing some of the pathologies that we thought had existed over the years. We are faced with development, and we're now trying to integrate a lot more environmental issues into development. We shouldn't think that because we are hungry, then we overeat. I mean, there is adequate opportunity for us to be aware of the environmental and climate change. For instance, the CO2 generation, I mean, for instance, we're producing, we are flaring gases from the oil field, and government has legislated that we must cut back on the flaring of gases. And therefore, we've gone ahead to convert to liquefy these gases, which we are also even selling in international market. So CO2 production is being cut back, and the awareness is also coming back. And so sustainable energy production is one of the ways by which we thought we will be able to address the CO2 production. Coastal waters temperature rise, of course, I mean, has been mentioned, about 40% of the population of Africa lives on the coast. So we are affected because we're a coastal country. And I think that addressing the problem of coastal erosion, wetland management has been one of our priority areas of development, because if the Atlantic Ocean should rise by 2-3 degrees, of course, we know there will be floods. So how do we handle the wetland? And I think wetland management is one of the areas in which we are paying attention to, and the regeneration of the mangrove vegetation is also one of the areas by which we... And then there is a Lake Chad Basin Authority to address the Lake Chad Basin that is disappearing. And then there is a tree planting to be able to bring back, afforestation to mitigate on the drought. And water access and water hydrology are some of the things that we are also looking at very seriously. And recently I printed out all the rivers in Nigeria and discovered that in actual fact we have enough water around the country. So it's the question of access that we need to address. Yes. Access for agriculture, access for human production. And as president of the Nigerian Academy of Science, I got some initiative collaboration with the U.S. national academies in which we were addressing the issue of how to produce clean water, which will eradicate most 80% of the diseases that will take children and adults into the hospital. And simple water filtration, producing water filters in the country will do that very readily. There are regional initiatives, regional activities, and both Nigeria and South Africa really have played a very leading role in creating regional collaboration and how to work with international partners. I think we've been able to define the agenda. What are the areas where we needed help most? And I think the question of malaria, for instance, has been well addressed, I mean, well articulated. And there is a rollback malaria program has come up, in which and the international community says if that's where you wanted help, and they had provided a lot of help. Bill and Melinda Gates had come in with, to support that initiative and also to support HIV programs as well. And I think President Bush's initiative also has come up to support HIV programs. I mean, the incidence of HIV in Nigeria is of the order of about 5%, and I think the figure used to be about 5.8, thereabout, and it's stabilized. But the 5% is still a very large figure in a population of 140 million. So we're taking the issue of HIV, and a lot of enlightenment programs is going on. We've set up a national NACA, National Agency for AIDS Management, which has been doing a lot of work. This is translated into what's going on at the local level in the state as well as in local government. And so we started, achieving some containment, and I think that retroviral is being given. In my own teaching hospital, where I'm the chairman, I mean, we have a retroviral programs. And we're working people up into accepting awareness to the point that there will be more voluntary testing. And from the voluntary testing, then we will be able to provide a little more drugs. And I think that talks and initiatives are on to see whether we as a country can also produce our own genetic drug, generic yes. drugs to be able to cope with this problem. I think Nigeria and South Africa really have played a very leading role.
It's like an axis, isn't it?
Yes, on which, and the two countries really recognize their huge responsibility, and I think that Nigeria, I mean, and the African AU were really responsible into, you know, stopping the war in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and then we've been playing some active roles to see that we can continue what's going on in Darfur. And I think, so I think that we're playing the big brother's role. I mean, but we ourselves are not all that rich, but we are working together with other groups to see that the total development of the continent will be common aim. And it's a priority development. And in terms of foreign policy, Africa is our center stage, and I think that that has been very useful. And I think the other lesser states have looked towards us for some help, which we readily give.
Are you pleased, are you satisfied with the degree of involvement with the international community in helping Africa in the areas it really needs to be helped?
Well, I think that the international, I mean, the NEPAD agenda, which is, again, this is a platform on which we wanted to relate to international community. And I think the international community has accepted that. If that is your plan, we will help you to implement this. And I think that, but more importantly, I think Africa is also trying to garnish its own internal support and put its funding where it wants to. And I think that NEPAD initiative has been a good one. And I think that they are also trying to be a center stage player in the area of science and technology. And I think the recent AU meeting did declare that they're going to declare 2008 year of science and technology, because that will be important in addressing health, in addressing climate change, in addressing sustainable development and hazards. Capitalism is enlightening self-interest, and what Africa needs to do is to learn how to play its own enlightened self-interest within the global arena. And I think that we've been longer doing this, and I think we're not complaining about capitalism at all. On the contrary, I think we're opening our gates to investment, and I think that things are happening. I mean, China, for instance, has come into Nigeria. They're interested in oil, I mean, because they know that energy is going to be their own problems, and we also negotiated what help we could get and work together in our communication, rebuilding of our railways and some of the infrastructure. And I think that, so we're not opposed to globalization. We're learning the tricks of how to defend our own self-enlightened interest within global partners. And so, but there are a few key areas in terms of international trade, what we need to protect, and how other people need to open up as well. I mean, intellectual property rights of indigenous knowledge is something we thought should also be considered as important in our own trade exchanges. I want to give credit to the organizers of this meeting. I've discovered that this is the 13th meeting, which means it's been going on in the last 13 years, and I'm delighted that they are focusing on Africa now, and that we're now trying to bring the issues of development, the skill and competencies of those who know more than we do, wanting to work with us. And we also have opened up on those are the issues that needed to be addressed together. Not in a very alarming situation, but to say that we are willing to work to improve our own lot by working with others and inviting other partners to be interested enough, look at us that if we do not develop, they too cannot claim any absolute development. And therefore, if we remain the rate-limiting step in global development, then the whole world should pay attention to us and help us develop.